You can see my screen?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. We'll offer some prayers before we start our class. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our weekly study of Discover Yourself, weekly course on Discover Yourself. So also known as Introduction to Bhagavad Gita. And last 3 weeks, we covered 2 topics. The first topic was searching for happiness. So who is searching for happiness in this world? Everyone. There is no exception. All living beings are all searching for happiness. But what happens in this world? Invariably, right? Everyone gets misery. It's like buy one, get one free. Even though we are all actively seeking for happiness, invariably misery comes. So a person with discriminating intelligence should ask the question, why? Even though no one is actively seeking for it, why it is coming? Sometimes it looks like it's forced upon us. Sometimes people say, oh, this is part of the nature, that's life. And some people say, hey, without some misery or suffering, you will never appreciate happiness, right? So hence they say, this is part of the package. This is what it is. So don't waste your time by asking these questions. Just go along. Just move forward in life. That's what most of the time, the modern civilization will, push us to think. But even if it is, we should ask the question, why? Because this ability to ask why is something unique to human beings. No other species can ask this question, why? They may figure out how to do certain things or how this is happening. But the other species of life will never ask the question, why? Whereas human beings, even if we are also interested only in finding out how, we are nothing but sophisticated animal. We need to go beyond this how and need to ask the question why it is happening. So for example, so I just give a little crude example. So I don't want anybody to get disturbed by this, but it's a reality. Sometimes in India, in the villages or small towns, near the market, there will be a butcher shop. The butcher shop, usually they will, cut goats. and sell goat meat. So sometimes there will be 2-3 goats will be there. They'll be tied up to a pole. They'll be fed with, something to eat. So then when the time comes, the butcher will come and take one of the goats, tied up and cut the throat. But the other goat, which is lying next in the line, it doesn't know that it is next in the line. It is simply eating the grass or whatever greenery leaves he put. It's eating, it's watching the other goat dying, but it doesn't know that it is dying. It's going to be next. In the same scenario, if you tie up human beings, right? If one person is being cut, immediately the other person will know, oh, it's going to be next me. Do you think he's going to be eating there? No, right? We can see how our discrimination, our intelligence is more developed compared to other species of life. So he will ask the question, why? Why is he doing this? Whereas a cat, a dog, a goat will not ask the question, why? It might try to escape, how I can escape, but it will never ask the question, why? So this is something unique to human beings. Ahara nidra bhayamaitanam cha samanyametat pashubir naranam. Right? Dharmegi tesham adige vishesho dharmegi hina pashubir shamanam. Eating, mating, sleeping, defending are all common to all living entities. The one which differentiates human being from other species of life is this ability to inquire what is dharma, what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, what is happiness, what is suffering, who am I? All this ability to ask question, inquire, is the one differentiate human beings from other species of life. So then we saw that there are 4 real problems of this world. On top of it, 3 types of suffering. We have to solve all these real problems, right? Using like material solution we cannot solve. We need to make higher inquiry. So hence that led to the topic 2. Does God really exist? In that we saw second topic, that went for 2 weeks because we have to saw quite a bit of proof, what is scriptures, all of them. So first we saw the proof for the existence of God. We saw basically 4 categories of items. C Lord is the acronym, right? Creation implies creator. Law implies lawmaker. Order and design implies designer. And then the propensities, right? Demands and urges we have. Or for every demands and urges we have, there is an avenue to fulfill in nature. So similarly, we all have demand to the urge to worship or the urge to adore something superior that exists. Hence, there has to be a supreme object of worship should be there. And then we saw the definition of God. 2 definitions we saw. The first definition, right? God is the supreme source of everything and supreme proprietor of everything, supreme enjoyer of everything, and supreme controller of everything. Spec. And then the second definition is more relevant to people coming from the Vedic background. Bhagavan, the word Bhagavan. Bhaga means opulences, Van means possessor. Bhagavan means one who possesses the 6 opulences in complete. He is called Bhagavan. What is that? All beauty, all strength, all knowledge, all fame, all wealth, all renunciation. Anyone who possesses this little bit of opulence, he can be called as powerful person. But anyone who possesses this in 6 in complete, he can be called as Bhagavan. And then we saw the third aspect, seeing God through cause and effect, right? Some people will say, show me God, I will believe it. Then we saw that cause and effect for a lot of things, right? Just by looking at the effect, we can understand the cause. So instead of trying to see God through our mundane eyes, just by understanding the effect, how the world is functioning in an organized way, through these various principles we saw earlier, creation implies creator, law implies lawmaker, design implies designer, right? Through the cause and effect, we can understand. So whenever you see an arrow, you should know that there is an archer behind. Whenever you see a puppet show, you should know that there is a puppeteer behind. Similarly, for all the causes and effects in this world, there is a supreme cause of all causes, for which there is no other cause. Sarva Karana Karanam. That from that we can understand that there has to be the source for everything, supreme source of everything. Next aspect we saw how to get knowledge, especially about God. There are three ways to get knowledge. First is Pratyaksha Pramana, direct sense perception. Through our eyes we see, through our nose we smell, through our tongue we taste, through our ears we hear, through our skin we touch. Right? These are called Jnanendriyas, knowledge acquiring senses, through which we get direct sense perception. The knowledge we get through this mechanism is limited because our senses are limited. Because our senses are limited, we come under illusion. When we come under illusion, we commit mistake. To hide those mistakes, people generally cheat. So hence, the knowledge we get through this Pratyaksha Pramana has to be limited. We can never get perfect knowledge. The second way of getting knowledge is Anumana Pramana. What is Anumana Pramana? Now, through speculation, through mental speculation, through guesswork. So this is predominantly this how science works, right? We make observation, we make hypothesis, and then we conduct experiment and collect data to verify, to prove or disprove our hypothesis. So once that is proven, we take that as a valid knowledge. So based on this accumulated body of knowledge, we keep on making more observations, more hypotheses, more experiments. Like that, there is a progressive way of making knowledge. So this is called Anumana Pramana, speculative work. Scientific process pretty much depends on this. But the problem is the knowledge we get through this Anumana Pramana also has to be limited, because in the end, we depend on our senses to collect data and to verify data. Hence, the knowledge we can ever get through Anumana Pramana also has to be limited, and it also has these 4 defects, which the Pratyaksha Pramana has. The next way of getting knowledge we say is Shabda Praman. Shabda Praman means testimony from an authority, or when we inquire into a body of perfect knowledge, we get perfect knowledge. The best way of getting perfect knowledge is when we make inquiry into a perfect body of knowledge, we can get perfect knowledge. Or when we get testimony from an authority, we get perfect knowledge. We saw the example. If a child wants to know who the father is, simple, right? Make inquiry into the mother, because mother is the authority on the father. Provided the mother is, as long as mother is not lying, mother says, beta, this is your father, no questions asked, right? Of course, later you might have, we can do some genetic fingerprinting and find out whether he is the father or not. But if you want to find out who the father is, the most and straightforward way of finding out who the father is, it is simply asking the mother. Similarly, if you want to find out the supreme father of everyone, the source of everyone, who the father is, we have to make inquiry into our supreme mother, the Vedas. Right? Then we saw how, right, Vedic knowledge is the vast body of knowledge, right? It provides knowledge for people from all walks of life, from all level. Slowly it elevates people to come up to the philosophical conclusion of all this knowledge. Vedanta. So Vedas are not created by human beings. Vedas might have been compiled by human beings, recorded by human beings, but it was always the words of God. It is never, that's why Vedas are called Aparaushya, not of human origin. Because it is not of human origin, right? It is emanating from God Himself. So they are actually perfect, the perfect body of knowledge. How do you know it is somebody, some source is a perfect body of knowledge? Three conditions, right? It should have been never proven wrong, withstood the test of time, and then it doesn't change over the period of time. Any body of knowledge which exhibits these three characteristics, it can be called as perfect body of knowledge. And then we saw how to develop faith in this Vedas. The three categories of information Vedas provides: historical information, right? And then instruction manual for human beings, and then predictions about future. We saw how historical facts and information is given, like how Earth, even though modern civilization knows that Earth is a round globe, recently or 300, 400 years old, but ancient Vedas knows that Earth is round. That's why they had named it as Bhugol. Bhugol means, Bhu means Earth, Bhugol, Gol means round, spherical, round Earth, right? Like that, plants has consciousness, plant has soul, right? Like that, so many information, historical information, cow dung, right, antiseptic, like that, so many historical facts which can be verified even today. All those things are mentioned. Second is instruction manual. Vedas act as an instruction manual for human beings. How, when I get a washing machine or when I get a, cell phone, if I want to understand how to use the cell phone or the washing machine properly, that appliance will come along with a manual. As long as I follow the instruction of the manual, right, the appliance can be used effectively and properly. Similarly, for human beings, there is a manual given how to live life in this world so that one can achieve the goal of life. So the instruction manual, Vedas act as an instruction manual. And third is predictions, information about future. Whatever 5,000 years ago, whatever the predictions given, some of those predictions like Lord Buddha, Chanakya Pandita, right, Chandragupta Maurya, Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like Ramanujacharya, all these personalities are predicted in the Vedic literature. In fact, there is a Purana called Bhavishya Purana. Bhavishya Purana is all about future prediction, what will happen and all. So, Vedas, by looking at these three categories of information, one can develop faith in the scripture. We can understand that Vedas are the ways to get knowledge about God. So that's what we saw last week. Today, we will continue our course on the third topic, who am I? This is the $1 million question we all have. Am I this body? Am I this mind? Am I this intelligence? Am I this ego? Or something beyond? When I die, what happens? When I die, is everything is going to be finished? Or something is going to continue? Right? So this is a question from time immemorial people have asked. Who am I? When I die, what happens? After death, what happens? Right? So what is birth? Where do we come from? Right? What is death? Where do we go from here? So we all know there is one thing is for sure in this world. What is that? Death. That's why they say as sure as death. Even birth may not be guaranteed. When a child is born, sometimes it could be born dead, born still. But one thing is guaranteed. Whoever takes birth in this world, they have to die one day. So when we take birth, who made a choice for me to take birth in a particular family? Did I have a choice to choose who my parents are going to be, where I'm going to be born? Right? which town, which country, which village I'm going to be born. Where am I coming from? Why I took birth in a particular situation. So similarly, when I die, where do we go from here? Who am I? Right? So this question is invariably everyone has, but most of the time, because of our cultural conditioning, right? We don't want to ask this question. We don't want to take it seriously. We just move on. Only time people sometimes contemplate is whenever somebody dies, some friends and family, somebody dies, people mourn for some time. But that is also, they say, only up to the graveyard. After that, people move on their life. Right? Life after death, is it a fact or fiction? When we die, something is going to continue or everything is going to stop when we die. So this is the focus of our session today. Who do we think really we are, right? Who are you? When somebody asks the question, who are you? Most of the time, we will give some answers like something like this. My name is so-and-so. I'm son of so-and-so. I'm an engineer. I'm a doctor, right? I'm an accountant, right? I'm a social worker, right? I'm an Indian. I'm a man or I'm a woman, right? Some identity we try to give, some address we try to give, right? But most of the time, right, this question, who are you? That question is asked. Most of the time, people give something connected to their body. I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm an engineer, I'm a manager, or I'm a doctor, right? I'm an accountant. Something we connected to our body we give. I'm, son of so-and-so. I'm a Tamilian, Hindu, right? Muslim, Christian. Some identity we try to connect with our body and give. Is it really our identity? What is identity? Identity means that which does not change. That should be permanent. If that is the case, any of the things what we tell, they are all temporary, connected to our body. Those identity can change. I am an American today, tomorrow I can become an Indian. Or I'm an Indian today, tomorrow I can become an American. Today I am a male, tomorrow I can become a female, right? Today I am a manager, tomorrow I can become an, clerk. So things can change. All this identity we assume, they are all not permanent, they are temporary based on the body. But real identity, it should not be based on that which is changing. That which is not changing is our real identity. Right? So what do doctors feel about if I am not this, changing identity, then why I have this body? My body is changing all constantly, right? What am I, this body? So if you try to analyze, according to modern science, there is one doctor, Dr. Harry Manson, right? He's a professor of anatomy from Illinois College of Medicine, right? He analyzed the human body. So human body mostly contains water, right? And then other things, what it contains is all these various minerals he broke up. Calcium is approximately 5 pounds. Phosphate is 1.5 pounds. This is on average, male adult, right? What is their body content? Calcium is 5 pounds. Phosphate is 1.5 pounds. Potassium is 9 ounces. Sulfur. Like that, he dissected the human body, analyzed chemical composition of our human body. This is a typical content, chemical composition of a human body. Now, he also calculated, based on these chemicals, what is the worth of our body? What is the value of the body? So based on his analysis, right, He said it's worth, a couple of dollars or like 110 rupees. The chemicals in our body, if you analyze the chemical composition, based on the value of those chemicals, our body is worth only 110 rupees or a couple of dollars. Now, do we really think that our body is only worth that much? Any of you have some points or comments on this? Let me give a story in this regard, right? So, my friend, right, who has a Mercedes Benz 5 Series, he paid $110,000. Then he bought this car, last year. He takes care of the car very nicely. So he is always, very proud about his car. He's very meticulous in taking care of the car. One day when I'm driving, I see that car in the street got into an accident. And then immediately I recognized that that is my friend's car. But immediately I stop. And I see that, my friend is like lying down unconscious, bleeding. And then I see that his car is damaged. Now, if I'm a person who is rationally, analytically thinking about, if I'm a businessman, right? What should I do? Here is the $110,000 worth of car got in an accident. Here is my friend's friend whose body is 110 rupees worth. Which one I should take care first? Obviously, any rational human beings will think clearly, right? That even though my friend's body is only 110 rupees worth, even though the car is $110,000 worth, obviously I will take care of my friend's body. Immediately I will take him to hospital, try to get attention, medical attention, and try to save him. Why? It is not that the body is worth 110 rupees, I ignore. As long as my friend, the soul, the person is present in the body is worth a lot more than what that body is made up of. Of course, when the soul leaves, the body becomes useless, right? We just simply bury it or burn it, cremate it. But as long as that person is alive, the body is worth a lot more. What to speak of this $110,000? Several $1,000,000 also, if it comes, I will just ignore that. I'll focus on my friend, right? Because as long as the soul is present in the body is worth a lot more than this 110 rupees, right? So let's try to understand what, when we say soul, means, what that animates the body. So if you see in this picture, right, there is a title, guess the emotion, right? Yeah, somebody responded, who I should take care first? Friend, right? Obviously. So guess the emotion in this picture, right? Most of you might have guessed it right. Happy, right? Guess the emotion, right? Frustrated, right? Guess this emotion. Stunned, right? Shocked. Guess the emotion, right? Affection, love. So all these various emotions we experience in human body, we all have experience experienced different types of emotion in our life? Are they all simply just because of chemical reactions happen in our body? Do we really think we are simply a bag of chemicals which goes through these emotions? These emotions are simply some chemical reactions happening in the brain. Are we all that simply that, or something other than that? Right? If not, then what is our true identity? If we are not this body, we are not simply bag of chemicals, we are not simply bag of chemical reactions happening, all the emotions we are experiencing in our life, there is some value to it. There is something other than being a bunch of chemicals, right? Then if that is the case, who really we are? What is our true identity? Veda says, right, we are not this temporary body. I am the eternal spirit soul. This is the first teachings Vedas teach in the spiritual life. What is that? I am not simply this body. I am something other than body. I am the eternal soul present within the body. I am not this body. I am the owner or possessor of this body. I happen to possess a human body today, right? Tomorrow I might move on to another body. Today I have a child body when I am 5 years old. When I grow up at 25 years, I have a man's body, young man's body. At 45, I have a middle-aged man's body. When I'm 75, I'm having an old body. The body is completely changing. The body is temporary, which is always changing. But that one which is not changing within me, that unchanging observer, that unchanging identity is my real self. That is the eternal soul. That's what Veda says. Now, how can you prove that soul exists? Vedas are saying that soul, we are not this body, we are eternal spirit souls. How am I supposed to understand this? Is there any proof? So that's what we are going to see. Systematically, we are going to see different set of thought process, how we can understand logically, systematically, scientifically that we are not simply this body, something other than the body, right? So that's what we are going to see. The first is through logic, that is common sense, right? When we see somebody died, what people say? So and so person had left this world. So and so person had left his body. But when we go to their house, or when we go to that wherever the place is, that person's dead body is in front of us, he is here. We say so and so person had left this world. If he is not this body, if he is this body, his entire body is there, not even one particular molecule is taken away. Everything is here. Then why do we say so and so person had left the world or left the body? If the person is not this body, right, then only we can say so and so person had left the body. If the person is this body, we can't say the body is still here right in front of us. Then if the person is this body, then what is the one which is missing? Different between live body and dead body, right? So if you apply this common sense, we can understand something other than the body is the one which is existing. As long as that is present, the body is animating. The moment that entity leaves the body becomes dead and inert, right? So that is the first logic. The second item through logic is through introspection. If you see this person, right, holding his hand, if I'm holding my hand, right, what is this? If somebody asks, right, I will say that this is my hand. What is this? My eyes. What is this? My nose. What is this? My head. And what is this whole thing? We say my body. So now we understand the connection, right? These are all my hand, my body, my thing. Let's say I'm wearing a spectacle. If you say, what is this? Then you will say, this is my spectacle, right? Will I ever say, I am the spectacle? No, right? Nobody will accept it if I say I am the spectacle. You understand, right? Very clearly, there is a difference between me and the spectacle. That is why I am the owner or possessor of the spectacle. That's why I say my spectacle. Similarly, when I say this is my hand, I am not this hand. I am the owner of this hand. The connection between the spectacle and me is I am the owner. That we clearly understand. Similarly, when I say my spectacle, I am the owner of the spectacle. Similarly, when I say my hand, I am not this hand, I am the owner of this hand, possessor of this hand. Similarly, when I say this eyes, right, my eyes, when I say I am not the owner of this, I'm not this eyes, I'm the owner of this eyes. Similarly, for the whole thing, right, we ask what it is. When I say my body, I say my body. When I say my body, that means I am not this body, I am the owner of the body, or I'm the possessor of the body. How we can clearly understand from the language, my spectacles, there is a difference between me and the spectacle. I am not the spectacle, I am the owner of the spectacle. Similarly, when I use the word language, my body, that very clearly tells that I am not this body, I am simply owner of this body. This simple introspection can help us to understand I am not this body. I am the owner or possessor of this body. That is the reason why we use this word my body. Otherwise, we should be using I body, I hand, I eyes, I nose, and I body. No, I am not this body. I am the owner of this body. Hence, I use the phrase my body. Similarly, right, this understanding, when we deeply analyze simple use of this language through logic, we can understand that I am something other than the body. I am not this body. I am the owner of the body. That is my real identity. The next is through cause and effect. We can understand. Whenever we see a car moving, we understand that there is a driver behind the car, right? Of course, people will say that, oh, driverless cars are there. Driverless cars are nothing but the extension of a driver. A driver have been simulated in computer. A programmer programs the computer on how to drive. So even though there is no driver visible, we understand that the programmer of the computer existing in the form of program driving the car. Similarly, right, whenever we see a car, we know that behind the car there's a driver. Even if we don't see the driver, we know that the car is, either a human driver or a software driver. It has to be there. So the car moves because of presence of the driver. Similarly, right, Vedas teaches, if we consider the body to be a vehicle, the driver of this vehicle is the actual person, the soul. Even though we may not see the driver, but we can understand that when the car is moving, we can immediately understand that the car is moving because of the presence of the driver. Similarly, when we see a body which is animating, we should know that there is a soul present in that body. As long as soul is present, the body is animating. When the soul is not present, body will become dull and inert and dead. So through the cause and effect, as long as something is animating, as long as something is active, we should know that behind that there is a person, there is a soul. Through this logic of cause and effect, driver and car, we can understand, right, that we are simply not this body, we are something beyond this body, something which animates the body. How the driver is the one which animates or drives the car, similarly the presence of the soul is like the driver of this body. As long as soul is present, the body moves or animates. The soul leaves the body becomes dead. So through the cause and effect, we can understand that I am not simply this body, something other than this body. The second category is through science. What is that? So in science, there is a branch called near-death experiences. If you search in Google or if you search in YouTube, you will see so much of, documented proof. People who had come to the almost to the brink of death, right? The people experience this near-death experience or out-of-body experience, right? So people observe, they from outside their body, what is happening to their body. Several times this has been documented in scientific field. When somebody is going through a surgery, right? That person is completely sedated. He is, biologically dead. But that person, whatever happens in the room, right? He can even, in fact, observe the surgery being performed to one's own body. He can, in fact, observe all the activities going on in the body. In fact, sometimes the patients tell the doctor, when you are doing that surgery, you are talking about your last weekend's golf, the golf game you played. So like that, people have amazing amount of this out of body experience. One time, a person was brought to an hospital, almost clinically dead, biologically dead. He was in an accident, then he was almost dead. See, when he was brought to the hospital, he was completely unconscious, clinically dead. But after bringing to the hospital, that person eventually was revived. When he came to consciousness, that person said in front of the hospital, there's a big oak tree. But he had never been to this hospital at all before in his life. So there is no way possibly he could know that there is a big oak tree in front of the hospital. He never came out of the hospital because he was always in the bed. When he came to the hospital, he was completely unconscious. But, people did not take it seriously when he said. In fact, he told the doctor, in fact, if you go to the terrace of this hospital, when you go there, you will see this oak tree from the terrace of the hospital. Not only that, when you go to the terrace, in one corner of the terrace, you will see an old pair of Nike shoes lying down there. So the doctor got intrigued because he knew that the terrace access in the hospital, is never open. It's always closed. Most of the times, why hospitals keep the terrace closed? Because, right, sometimes through traumatic experiences, people may try to commit suicide. So they always keep it closed. The doctor knew very well that access to the terrace is not possible. There is no way this person could have seen there in the terrace of the building, there's an old pair of Nike shoes. On the left hand side, you will see a water tank, all these things. And then if you look ahead, you will see this huge big oak tree. All this description, whatever he gave, the doctor, he was intrigued. So then immediately called the security guard who has the access to the terrace of the hospital. So he called him. The doctor went along with the security guard. The access to the terrace, the door was actually locked. The security guard unlocked the door. They climbed up. When they went to the terrace, they saw that on the left hand side, the water tank. When they somewhat forward, there is an old pair of Nike shoes lying down there. And then when you look ahead, you see this big, huge oak tree. as exactly the patient described. So like that, there are several near-death experience or out-of-body experience people have. They have documented these things. That very clearly tells, even when our body is dead, we can experience something. We can come out of the body and observe things, right? So that scientifically have been documented, but the science is not coming into mainstream because mainstream science cannot explain these things. Hence, these things are kept, in a low profile. So the next, right, there is a book called Proof of Heaven, right? Dr. Eben Alexander, right? He writes his experience, how he came close to death, how he experienced something out of his body, right? All these things are nicely documented in this book, Proof of Heaven. So similarly, through science, there is another branch called past life memories. There is a professor, right? His name is called Ian Stevenson. He is a professor, head of this particular psychiatry department in University of Virginia. So he had held this director of this professor of psychiatric evaluation. He had conducted researches for far most than 30 years. He had written, actually, he had evaluated hundreds and thousands of cases documented. He had written several books. He is not a religious person. He does not believe in reincarnation. He does not believe in any of the traditional spiritual beliefs. He's a rational thinking doctor. But over the period of time, all the cases he evaluated, scientifically documented, he came to a conclusion that there is a phenomenon called reincarnation. People do take birth again. People do remember their past life memories. Otherwise, there is no way this phenomenon could be explained. He had documented and analyzed, studied thousands and thousands of cases all over the world. In fact, he published several cases, right, even in India, based on the researches he had done, right? So his work, if you search for Dr. Ian Stevenson, he passed away a few years ago. He's a very honest gentleman. He had published, several books on these facts. How do people do remember past life memory? And people say that I remember from past life these things. He really makes a thorough inquiry to say whether they are lying, whether there is any concoction, is there any way the child could get access to this information. Most of the time, this past life memories are coming from children of very young age, who doesn't know how to manipulate information, how to scheme things, right? They're just simply saying what they remembered. Sometimes a child will speak completely a foreign language. Sometimes child will clearly identify who his parents are in the previous life. Or sometimes they can exactly tell, right? They died accidentally, or somebody killed them or murdered them. They can point out who the person did this heinous act, right? Sometimes people who are born with birthmarks. Sometimes we will see a person born without a limb, without a hand, as if something really cut his hand in the previous life. That's what happened. That person had an accident, his hand got cut, and then with that traumatic pain, he died. And then when he took the birth, next time he born exactly without a limb. Or somebody shot in the chest with a bullet. Somebody is remembering that incident and took birth exactly with a bullet mark in the chest. So birthmarks and past life memories All these cases, Dr. Ian Stevenson evaluated. His scientific conclusion was the concept of reincarnation is the only way to explain these cases. Scientifically, there is no other way to explain these cases. Like that, not only him, there are several other professors also nowadays have done research. This is not part of mainstream science yet, but science do have this evaluation on past life memories and out of body experiences documented. Through science, we can understand all this is possible only if we are not this body. We are all spirit, which is other than this body. So here in this picture, right, we see there is a young boy, young man in a college. So when this one of our teachers, Gaura Gopal Das, when he was presenting this Discover Yourself course in a college, and one of the boy raised his hand. He said, I am actually one of the case study for Dr. Ian Stevenson. And then when I was like, very young, less than 2 years old, there was a research done. And I remembered my past life, the whole story he mentioned. And then his story was actually published in a newspaper. And then he brought actually the newspaper cuttings. And then he showed that he is not simply lying. Even though after grown up, he does not remember the past life memories, but when he was young, very clearly he remembered in past life who he was. He was even though born in Bombay, right? He actually in the previous life, he said that he was born in Udaipur. He was actually so and so person. He has son, wife, and then he was working in the government museum, right? He was working as a security guard. All those details this boy had given. In fact, when they were going in the train, before even the Udaipur station came, that boy said that after after two stops, he has to get down. And then when they got down, they got in a tanga, and then this person actually recognized the tanga wala. He called by his name. Hey Ramu, don't you remember me? Let's go to my house. And then this boy actually directed the tanga wala all the way to the house. After going to the house, he recognized this is my son, this is my wife. So everybody got a shock. Especially the son, he thought this is some kind of a scheme to take the wealth or property away from them. So that time the son said that I will believe this is my father, provided in my house, my father actually keeps a handgun because he was a security guard. He used to keep a handgun as well. If only me and my father knows where the handgun is. If this boy can identify where the handgun is, then I will believe that this is my father. So this boy went inside a particular room, opened a bureau, and then underneath there was a hidden rack in that shelf. He opened that shelf, took out that handgun, and he showed. Not only that, that boy actually went all the way to the museum. In the museum, he showed, right, that various, artifacts in the museum where it is kept in a hidden way, a secret room where nobody knows where it is kept. He showed in that museum all these various, things which were never displayed to the public, right? He opened that secret passage and he showed various artifacts from the museum. Like, for example, in this picture, you see a kerosene fan, a fan which runs through kerosene. So this boy showed not only that, how to start the fan. He even went and started the kerosene fan. He was a 2-year-old boy. He can't even start an electric fan. This boy showed exactly how to start this electric kerosene fan to make it work. So like that, so many things were clearly documented in Dr. Ian Stevenson's case. This is one example, right? This was the picture when he was a security guard earlier. So he said one of the guy, actually the king, poisoned him in the milk. Somebody had put a poison and gave, and that's how the security guard died. The reason was the king was actually looting something from the palace, which happened to be a museum. He was illegally taking a lot of things away from the museum, the artifacts. When the security guard found out, the king, arranged somebody to poison him and kill. So this boy remembered all those details. So the third category of proof is coming from the scriptures. Right? We saw logic. Second, we saw through the science. And third, we are seeing through the scriptures. Pratyaksha, Anumana, and Shabda. Right? Scriptures, what does it say about who we are? Scripture says we are not this body, like how a bird which is in a cage. The bird is different from the cage. Similarly, we are all spirit souls encaged in this body. Krishna says, in fact, the beginning of second chapter, 12th verse, he says, Natve vagam jatunasam, natvam neme janatipaka, nachevanama bhavishyamaha, sarve vayam ataparam. There was never a time I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings. There will never be a time we will all cease to exist. So basically he's saying that means we existed in the past, we are existing now, we will exist in future. So that means we are not this body, we are all eternal spirit souls. Then if we are not this body, if we are all eternal spirit souls, then what this body is? In the next verse, immediately Krishna answers what the body is. Deginosmin yata dehe kaumaram yavvanam jara tada dehantara praptir deras tatra namuhyati. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, similarly at the time of death, the soul moves on to another body. A sober person is not bewildered by such change. He clearly says the body is temporary, always changing, whereas the soul is eternal. The soul is considered to be Sat, Chit, Ananda. The body is Asat, Achit, Nirananda. When we put this Sat, Chit, Ananda soul with Asat, Achit, Nirananda body, there is incompatibility arises. So in the next verse, 2.15, Krishna says, Matrash Parshastu Kaunteya, Sidoshana Shubhadakada, Agama Paino Anityas Tamsha Tidikshava Bharata. Right? Like the non-permanent appearance of summer and winter season, the so-called happiness and suffering in this world are like the non-permanent appearance of summer and winter season. They arise due to our sense perception. Right? One has to learn to tolerate. So like that, Krishna gives in the second chapter of Gita, from verses 11 to verses 30, he gives this Atma Jnana, who we are, the knowledge of the self. In that he gives several analogies, like how a person wearing a shirt is separate from the shirt. Once the shirt becomes useless, he will throw away the shirt and get another shirt. Similarly, the soul is like the person using this body of the shirt of the body, and once the body becomes useless, the soul moves on to another body. Like that, Krishna gives so many systematically in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, so much of evidence, very clearly establishing that we are not this body. So again, the argument might come, can you show me the soul? Only then I will believe in the soul. Again, this argument a lot of people give, right? For them, showing is not only, seeing is not only believing, right? We got to explain. There is a Vedic verse, Pushpe Gandham Tile Tailam, Kaste Agnim Payashigritam, Aksho Gudam Tada Dehe, Pashyatmanam Vivekataha. It says, as fragrance in flower, oil in sesame seeds, fire in wood, ghee in milk, sugar and sugarcane. So see the self in the body by the power of discrimination. When you see a flower, you don't see the scent in that. But if somebody knows how to extract the fragrance from the flower, can get the extract the essence, that essential oil or fragrance from the flower. Similarly, when you see a till seed, sesame seed, you don't see oil in it. But if a person knows, if a person who has the knowledge, if you give the sesame seed to him, he will follow a particular process and extract oil. Similarly, when you give a piece of wood, you don't see fire in it. If you give to a person, right, that person by rubbing the wood against another wood, by doing the process of rubbing the wood or by churning the wood against another wood, eventually can create fire by following a process. Similarly, right, when you see sugar cane, you don't see sugar. If you give the sugar cane, a person can extract sugar cane juice of it and then put it on a stove slowly by evaporating the sugar cane juice, you can form, right, the sugar, extract sugar out of the sugar cane, right? Like all these things, how even though it is an unmanifested state, by following a process, you can manifest fragrance from the flavor, oil from the sesame seed, fire from the wood, ghee from the milk, sugar from the sugar cane. Similarly, a person who is properly trained how to see, properly trained how to discriminate, properly trained on how to use his viveka or discrimination, he can, by following a process, the unmanifest soul can be made manifest to understand the existence of the soul. Right? So by cause and effect, we can see, right? Can you see the attar in the rose? No. But we know that attar is present. By following the process, we can extract attar. Right? Similarly, we don't see oil in the sesame seed. By following a process, by drying the seed, right, after making it dry, after moisture go away, we can take it to a oil mill. By crushing it, we can extract the oil from the sesame seed, right? Similarly, the firewood, right? The wood, we don't see the wood in the fire in the wood. But by following a process, we can start the fire in the wood, right? Similarly, when you see a milk, you don't see the ghee in it. By following a process, we can extract ghee out of the milk, right? By fermenting the milk, right? Or by curdling the milk, we can make yogurt. By churning the yogurt, we can get butter. From butter, by heating it on a slow heat, after some time, we can get ghee out of the butter. So by following a process, one can extract ghee out of the milk, even though it is not visible, right? Similarly, sugar from the sugar cane, I already explained, right? Similarly, a person who knows how to apply the spiritual technology, spiritual knowledge, spiritual process, he can see the unmanifested soul in the heart by following a process, right? Further, someday, oh, you show me the soul, I will believe it, right? For example, if I give a tape measure, what can you do with the tape measure? You can find out the length or width of particular object, right? If I give a litmus paper, you can find out whether a solution is acidic or alkaline. If I give a microscope, you can find out, whether a particular bacteria is present or not, right, in a sample. So these three different tools, right, measuring tape, microscope, litmus paper, they represent a tool for three different branches of science: physics, chemistry, and biology. If I give you a litmus paper and ask you to find out the length of a particular piece of wood or frame, you'll be able to find out? No. If I give you, a measuring tape and then find out whether a bacteria is present in a particular sample, no, you will not be able to use. One set of tools is not going to work in another branches of science. You need different set of tools for different branches of science. Now, what to speak of altogether, we are talking about different sciences, spiritual science. So none of the tools what we use will be helpful in the spiritual science. You need to develop a different set of tools and a different set of process to experience or to witness the soul, right? How a chemist uses, right, a certain process to evaluate a particular solution is acidic or alkaline, right? Similarly, a transcendentalist or a yogi or a spiritual person apply a process to realize the soul, right? How a biologist can use a microscope to find out the presence of a fungus or a particular bacteria, right? Similarly, a person with a spiritual technology and process, he can realize the presence of the soul. What is the process? That process is called yoga, right? Our composition of the body, right? Our body contains, basically we all have two types of body, the gross body and the subtle body. The gross body is made up of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. This is what we normally experience. The gross body is the one we usually identify with. Beyond this gross body, there is a subtle body. The subtle body is made up of mind, intelligence, and false ego. The gross body is like outer suit, right? The subtle body is like the inner vest. The inner vest is normally not visible, right? The outer coat is the one which is visible. Outer coat, the gross body, made up of earth, water, fire, air, and space. And then the subtle body, which is not visible. It is made up of mind, intelligence, and false ego. The gross body in Sanskrit is called Stula Sarira, which is made of Bhumi, Rapo, Analo, Vayu, Kam. And then the subtle body, Shuchama Sarira, is made up of Manas, Buddhi, and Ahankar. So beyond this gross and physical body, we all have a spiritual body. So that spiritual body is the actual person. If you see in this picture, you see a person wearing the inner vest and then the outer coat. The inner vest and outer coat is not the actual person. The person behind this dress is the actual person. Similarly, our gross body and subtle body, we are not that. Behind this, we all have a spiritual body. That possessor of the spiritual body is the actual soul. So there is a frequently asked question about, the soul, right? Some frequently asked questions. Does soul have a form? Right? Absolutely. The soul has a form. That is why we all have a form. If the soul doesn't have a form, the body will not have a form. In fact, when the soul leaves the body disintegrates into its primordial elements of earth, water, fire, air, and space. It loses its shape and form. So because of the presence of the soul, only the body has a form. So that from that we can understand that soul has a form. Soul is not something formless. Second is, does the soul have a form, right? Yes, it has a form, right? Like the example is like like a gloves and a hand. The gloves has a form because the hand has the form. The shirt has a form because our body has a form. Similarly, our body, right, is having a form because the soul have a form. Because of that only we have, form. So the form comes from the soul. Is the soul in everybody same, or everybody has a different soul? According to Vedic scriptures, according to Bhagavad Gita, the soul is individual. The soul in my body, the soul in your body, the soul in a cat's body and dog's body, they are all not same. They are all of same quality, but they are all individual souls. That is why only I can know what is happening in my body. As an individual soul, I can know what happens in my body. I can never know what is experiencing in your body. Only you can experience what goes on in your body. Like that, we are all individual souls eternally. Right? The soul is individual. Even in identical twins, there are two different souls. Every individual body has an individual soul. Where does the soul reside? According to scriptures, the soul resides in the region of the heart. In the region of the heart, his soul is residing. Somebody might ask the question, I got a heart transplantation. Did I get a different soul? No. When I say soul is staying in the region of the heart, it is not existing in a material dimension. When the heart is changed, still it's the same soul. The soul, when the heart is not replaced, the soul is not getting replaced. It is in the region of the heart, but it's not existing in a material thing. When the heart is taken out and put a new heart, it doesn't mean that soul got changed. Soul is still there. It resides in the region of the heart. Is the soul destroyed at death? No, there is no end. Soul cannot be destroyed, right? It doesn't die. When the body dies, the soul doesn't die. The soul is eternal. Sat. So that is the difference between body and soul. Soul is never destroyed or never created. It is eternally existing. The next characteristic is, right, soul being Satchidananda Vigranaha, it cannot be destroyed, right? It is eternal. It cannot be, Bhagavad Gita says, it cannot be destroyed, killed by any weapon. It can't be burnt by fire. It can't be wet by water. It can't be withered by wind. Soul is transcendental to matter. None of the things in this world can destroy the soul. Right? All these pictures we see, right? The soul is never, fire cannot burn, water cannot wet, right? Air cannot dry, right? The soul is eternal. When body dies, the soul continues its journey. Is the soul same as God? Actually, in one sense, it is same as God. In another sense, they are different. In terms of quantity, we are all different. In terms of quality, we are one with God. If you take a drop of water from the ocean, the drop of water, is it same as the ocean? Yes. From the quality point of view, the chemical composition of the salt, the water, the chemical composition, the salty water from the ocean, it has the same quality as the whole ocean. But in terms of quantity, the ocean is unlimited, whereas the drop of water is not equal to the ocean in terms of quantity. So that is the difference between us and God. God is Vibhu and we are Anu in terms of quantity. In terms of quality, he is also Satchidananda Vigraha. We are also Satchidananda Vigraha. We have the same characteristics or quality of God. But in terms of power and quantity, we are infinitesimal. God is infinite. We are Vibhu, we are Anu, and God is Vibhu. Does the soul change with the changing body? No. The soul does not change. The soul is eternal. Only the soul is changing the body. Body cannot change the soul. Because of the presence of the soul, the body is constantly going through a change. Presence of the body, presence of the soul makes the body go through change. Every body has to go through the 6 transformations, right? Birth, right? It grows, it stays for some time, it produces some byproducts, offsprings, it dwindles down and dies. These are the 6 transformation all the body has to go through. All this transformation is happening to the body because of the presence of the soul. As long as soul is present, the body is constantly going through changing. The body is changing. The body changes because of the presence of the soul. The soul is changeless, only the body is changing. Right here, somebody had, in somebody's graveyard, right? This particular quote was given. Remember me as you pass by. As you are now, so once was I. As I am now, you shall be. So be prepared to follow me. Right? He's telling that at some point of time, the body has to die, the soul will pass, move on. The body is changing all the time. At some point of time, when the body becomes useless, the soul altogether abandons this body and goes on to another body. Right? What is the size of the soul? Somebody might ask the question. Right? It is mentioned in one of the Upanishads. Right? If you take tip of the hair and then you divide that into 100 parts and take that one part and divide that again into another 100 parts. That is the size of the soul. Meaning 1/10,000th part of a tip of a hair. It is not the width of the hair, it's the tip of the hair. So if you look at the tip of the hair, we can never tell exactly how small it is. So we asked the scientist, can you find, if you take the tip of the hair and divide it into 10,000 parts, will I be able to see in the electron microscope? Scientists say, no, it's not possible. Tip of the hair is so small, depending on what you are trying to, identify as tip. So it is not possible. So the scripture says, right, the size of the soul is 1/10,000th part of a tip of a hair. So it is very tiny. The same tiny soul, when it enters into an ant, it makes the ant's body animate. The same tiny soul enters into a gigantic blue whale, the largest mammal known to human beings. Right? The heart of a blue whale is size of a small car. Right? Such a huge species. That same soul, when it's present in a gigantic whale's body, it makes that gigantic whale body animate. If the tiny soul leaves, 1/10,000th part of a tip of a hair, soul leaves that gigantic blue whale body, that body becomes dead. Even big cranes cannot move that particular blue whale easily. So the soul is sometimes, achintya, inconceivable. When a soul is present in a strong bodybuilder's body, he can lift 4 people. When the tiny 1/10,000th part of a tip of a soul leaves the body, you need 4 people to lift that body. When the soul is present, that person can lift 4 people. But the tiny soul, when it leaves, you need 4 people to lift that body. So this is the inconceivable nature. Right? I gave the example, right? The same tiny 1/10,000th part of a tip of a hair size soul, when it's present in an ant, it makes the ant body move. When it's present in a huge elephant, it makes the elephant move. When it is present in a blue whale, large blue whale, weighing several tons, it makes the same blue whale move, the presence of the tiny soul. Right? As I gave the example, then when the person is alive, we can lift 4 people. When he is dead, right? When the soul leaves, you need 4 people to lift the body. So that's what we covered today. As a summary, our real identity is not the body. We are all spirit souls. We saw 3 categories of proofs: logic, science, and scripture. Logic, again, we saw common sense, introspection, and through cause and effect. Science, we saw the near-death experience and past life memories. And then scriptural, based on Bhagavad Gita, how Bhagavad Gita, especially the verses 2.11 to 2.30, gives this Atma Jnana, knowledge of the self, knowledge of the soul. And then if you want to see the soul, realize the soul, there is a process available. How the unmanifested oil in the sesame seed can be seen by following a process. Unmanifested ghee in the milk can be seen by following a process. Unmanifested sugar from a sugar cane can be seen. The fire in the wood can be seen by following a process. Like that, by following this process of self-realization, we can discover ourselves, discover our soul. We can understand the existence of the soul. We can realize this. And then we saw that we all have three types of bodies: the gross body, subtle body, and spiritual body. Gross body is made up of earth, water, fire, air, and space. The gross subtle body is made up of mind, intelligence, and false ego. And the spiritual body is our real self, which is what the soul possesses, which is made up of Sat Chit Ananda. And then the 7 qualities of the soul, right? The soul has a form, it is individual, it resides in the region of the heart, right? It is eternal. When the body dies, the soul does not die. The soul is different in terms of quantity, one in terms of quality with God. The soul is constantly changing the body. And then the size of the soul is 1/10th of the part of a tip of a hair. So from this we can understand, based on scripture, based on logic, based on common sense and science, we can understand that we are not this body, we are all spirit soul. That is what Bhagavad Gita, but this is the first principle Krishna teaches in Bhagavad Gita. We are not simply this body, we are eternal spirit soul. Where the modern science ends, the spiritual science begins. Actually, there is no contradiction between spiritual science and science. Science deals with all aspects of body, analyzing the body, but it can't find out the presence of the soul, because soul exists in a different dimension altogether. The moment something other than this body is the one which operates the body, that person moves into spiritual science. Spiritual science is a continuum to the material science. There is no conflict. But people, out of lack of knowledge, they create all this conflict. The moment we accept, I am not this body, I am spirit soul, material science ends and the spiritual science begins. So this is what all the Vedic literature teach, who we are. I am not this body, we are an eternal spirit soul. So next week we will see, a different topic. Now, after understanding who we are, right, we are going to understand who God is. God is one or many. We understood God exists, some higher power has to be there. We understood that who we are. Definitely we are not God. We are all limited. God has to be unlimited. We are all tiny. God is infinite. We are Anu, he is Vibhu. One thing we can realize after understanding our identity is we are not actually God. We are all individual souls. We have very limited freedom. We have limited power to change or observe our body. Even within our body, so many things we cannot know. God, by definition, he has to be the supreme knower of everything. So from this, we can understand that we are not this body, we are soul, but the soul, there are 2 types of soul, the individual soul and super soul. The super soul, God, that's what we are going to see next week, who he is. At this point, any comments? I'll stop here. Any comments, any questions? You can unmute. No comments, no questions, doubts. If not, we will end here this week's session. Thank you very much. We'll continue next week. The next topic, who is God? God is one or many? Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.